Facebook needs to be brought to heel and pay for UK news, the head of Britain's Digital, Culture and Media Committee has said, as the company's Australian blackout continues to draw global backlash.
The company's move to block all media content in Australia is a staggeringly irresponsible attempt to bully a democracy and will stiffen the resolve of legislators across the world to get tough with the technology giant, Julian Knight said Thursday. Facebook should face stern legislative action and be brought to heel that way rather than through the softly approach which they said they wanted, Mr. Knight said.
I think they're almost using Australia as a test of strength for global democracies as to whether or not they wish to impose restrictions on the way in which they do business, or corrections to the way in which they operate within markets.
So we're all behind Australia in my view, the Conservative MP for Solihull added.
When asked whether Facebook should pat for news in the UK, the MP said yes, I think there is a case.
If you gain value from carrying trusted sources of information, in the same way as if you gain values for example from music streams, then those that carry those and then sell advertising off the back of that value, should pay for it. It seems to be pretty logical, he said.
His comments came as the social media giant is facing down calls for a boycott after it took the extraordinary step of banning users in Australia from accessing news in a row over paying for content. Delete Facebook, boycott Zuckerberg, and Facebook We Need to Talk began trending on rival site Twitter today, as the move spread around the globe. Facebook said it chose to block news content rather than comply with a new law set to be passed in Australia in the coming days which will force it to pay news organizations for hosting their stories, with other countries watching closely.
Critics blasted the decision, saying it will lead to the proliferation of conspiracy theories and misinformation, which Facebook claims to be tackling. Mr. Knight called Facebook's actions deeply disturbing and the equivalent of taking their ball home, and said that it threw the whole idea of Facebook cooperating with legislators around the globe out of the window.
They've made a great deal since the DCMS inquiry into fake news and disinformation and Cambridge Analytica, which obviously first really refocused the world's attention on Facebook in its use of data and the way in which it dominates our social media landscape along with the likes of Google and Twitter, he said.
They've since then said that they would be responsible and that they would cooperate with legislators. This doesn't look like cooperation to me. This looks like they're taking their ball home with them. Frankly, I think they need to rethink it very quickly.
The idea of Facebook effectively cutting off any news source at this particular time, when people need trusted information, is staggering actually in its lack of care. I have to say that I think it's clear to me that in this decision, Facebook is failing to be a good global citizen.
The ban appeared rushed and spectacularly botched, as it brought down UK news sites that share names with Australian papers, health services providing COVID information, charities, food banks, and even Facebook's own homepage.
Instead of seeing posts from the social media giant, users clicking on its own Facebook page were instead met with a message saying no posts yet.
In a spectacular case of buck passing, Facebook then attempted to blame the errors on the Australian government, saying it mirrors the broad and vague definition of news in its new law.
David Cicilline, a Democrat politician from Rhode Island, even went so far as to say Facebook is not compatible with democracy, as people were also urged to give up Instagram and WhatsApp because Facebook owns them.
Among those urging people to delete the app was Stephen Sheeler, former Facebook Australia CEO, who slammed the alarming move and accused Mark Zuckerberg of being motivated by money, power and not by the good.